And gentlemen, this is fitting because we got to talk about the Chicago Bears. And I couldn't help but notice, I believe we're 34 days away from our first regular season kickoff, which, of course, Walter Payton days away. Emory, I'm going to start with you. I'm not going to start at the running back position, though. I'm going to start at quarterback. We've got Caleb Williams. We've got Ben Johnson. How do you think that duo is going to go this year in 2025?
It's going to work really well, man. I find it fascinating how people talk about Caleb Williams around social media. You would think he threw 9 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. Like, this dude played okay and solid for a rookie considering the situation. And now you pair him up with a coach that does a great job in making the offense quarterback friendly, getting the best out of his quarterback. This team has loaded up on weapons with Luther Burden coming to the mix, along with Colston Loveland to go with already what they had in tow. This team is going to be really good. They're going to be fun to watch, and Caleb Williams will be the direct beneficiary of all of those weapons.
RJ, I'll tell you this. I'm not necessarily the biggest Caleb Williams fan, but I'm not one of those on social media that Emory's talking about. I'm not a big Caleb guy. With that said, it's stacked. You got Ben Johnson and you got all the extra weapons that Emory just referenced. It almost feels like it's hard for him not to succeed. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, his stats were pretty good last year. I disagree that he played that well. I mean, there's a lot not to like, but I also chalked it up to him being a rookie and having to go through 3 different offensive coordinators. So we know that Thomas Brown became his offensive coordinator, then he became the interim coach, and then they got a new offensive coordinator. And it's just a lot for him to process. I think there was things to build off of, and he's with the perfect guy in Ben Johnson to make everything work. So I do love the pairing here. I mean, Johnson made Jared Goff the best version of himself in Detroit. I expect that for Caleb. He's going to build an effective offense around his strengths, not ask him to do everything and try to coach some of the things that were an issue out of him. It just didn't seem like Caleb was a fit with what the offense wanted to do last year. And he particularly held the ball too long behind a bad offensive line. I think that's going to be the priority to fix that this year.
All right. Well, let's move to the NFC North odds because obviously the Bears are in a stacked division, RJ. We look at the Lions as a pretty decisive favorite, but the Packers and the Vikings certainly will have something to say about that. The Bears plus 550 to win the NFC North. Anything to even consider here, RJ?
Well, I love the Packers, so I can't pick the Bears as the pick to make here, but I do think they have value at that plus 550. I would be surprised if they finish last with Ben Johnson, with an upgraded offense, with the playmakers they've added, and with a good defensive coordinator and Dennis Allen joining the team too. So I actually think there is value betting the 550. I'm too high on the Packers to fully buy in on it. I would much rather have them at a plus 275 number. But if people want to sprinkle on the Bears, I certainly get it.
Emory, it's notable that the Bears to finish 4th, if you just wanted to isolate that, it's plus 150. But to finish 3rd, plus 225. Do you like any of the numbers, whether it's the plus 550 or maybe slotting in 3rd, 4th, or maybe even 2nd?
Man, give me that plus 550 to finish first. You talk about some of the improvements. Look at the offensive line. Guard center guard play. Jonah Jackson. You also bring in Joe Tooney and Drew Dahlman. That's a core trio that's going to help solidify their offensive line. They're going to get better play from the tackles as a result of it. And on defense, Deo Adingbo, as well as Grady Jarrett, to go along with Montez Sweat, to go along with what they have already at the 2nd and 3rd levels of their defense. And when you combine all of those factors and a little bit of a known commodity coming into this thing, a very stacked team on both sides of the ball, I like them to win the division. I think they have less questions, in my opinion, than does Minnesota, even though we know Minnesota is solid on both sides of the ball. Green Bay is always dealing with some sort of injury. And Detroit, we saw last night, game 1, play 1, they fumble the football. So it's a bad omen for Detroit right now. They had a lot of moving parts. They lost both of their coordinators. So at the end of the day, I like Chicago more so than anyone else. It'll be a tight race, but I like them to win. I will put something on at 550.
Yeah, certainly could make the argument that Detroit's going to backpedal just a little bit or just enough to have those other 3 teams be really relevant in the NFC North race. All right, Emory, if you like them to potentially win the division, again, at that plus 550 number, I got to think you might like the Bears over 8.5 wins. And at BetMGM, it's plus 115. Are we hitting that plus number, Emory?
Absolutely. Value, value, value. The Bears, to me, strengthen where football is the most important, right down the battery. That center, D tackle, Mike Backer, safety, quarterback, running back there is strong. Right down the middle is, furthest away from the football. So for me, that's where they're going to hang their hats this year. I think that's where they're going to surprise some folks. 8.5, and you saw the odds. Detroit was 10.5. So they're expecting this division to be that close. And if I'm expecting Detroit to take a step back and Chicago to take 2 steps forward, then you can flop those two, and I'm definitely take that over.
RJ, are we in agreement here? Are we taking the plus money?
Yeah, I love the over here. I see the Lions and Vikings taking a step back, and Ben Johnson turning things around quickly with that very good coaching staff he has. I faded the Bears at 8.5 wins last year. Had a lot of hype coming into the season, and actually had a higher price on the over. I think this is a better team with a better coaching staff, a better offensive line, even more weapons. So you throw in a quarterback who should be better in year two, and I think they should be favored to go over 8.5, and this number should be higher than it was last year, even granting that they were disappointing last year.
All right, well, let's raise the stakes even more because we just went from, hey, let's consider NFC North. Okay, let's consider the over 8.5 wins. How about to make the playoffs? Because that number is even longer at plus 155 here at BetMGM. RJ, I start with you. It sounds like we like the Bears enough to maybe hit this number as well.
Yeah, actually, I noted in my CBS make miss playoffs betting piece that I have up this week that the Bears were my favorite NFC sleeper to make it in. My concern is that I think that there are three NFC West teams that could be really good, including the Cardinals, with the two obvious ones. And of course, you got Philadelphia and Washington still hanging around. So I think it's going to be tough for Chicago, but I think they're right there in that mix. And plus 155 is a great value on that. I think the odds should be closer to even. So I do think it's a good value play to take them at the plus 155.
Emory, it does feel like value, at least as far as you and RJ see it.
Absolutely. And the Bears will be competing with teams like the Cowboys, a team like the Rams, a team like the Bucks or Falcons, depending on how you see the South. So yeah, they're going to be in the mix for that 7th seed. But if they win, that means that pushes them up to 4. So I like them to get to the postseason. Definitely hammering this as well.
All right. We're in on the Bears so far. Let's go to season-long player props. Emory, give me your favorite one for the Chicago Bears.
Caleb Williams throwing over 22.5 touchdowns. He has DeAndre Swift, who is a fantastic receiver out of the backfield. Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet at tight end. Luther Burden with that big number 87 he's wearing. Shout out to Tom Waddle. He also has DJ Moore. And so he has a lot of weapons. And Roma Dunze is going to take a huge step forward this year. In a quarterback-friendly offense, I think he touches 30 touchdown passes. So right now, while it's at 22.5, slam this over.
First of all, give me all the references. Give me all the references from 10, 20 years ago. Tom Waddle, I love that. Also, RJ, I love this touchdown over. Again, not the biggest Caleb Williams fan. I love this touchdown over. You like Caleb Williams as well in the prop market, but you're not going to touchdowns. You're going to yards.
Yeah, I'm taking him over on yards. I think touchdowns are a little bit more variable about what happens there. Who knows what happens when you get closer to the goal line? And he is a pretty mobile quarterback. We saw last year, so he could be in that Jalen Hurts role of getting a bunch of rushing touchdowns, and his passing touchdowns might be affected. I love him going over 35, 50.5 passing yards. Johnson's offenses in Detroit were centered around a pair of excellent running backs, but the Bears drafted those two pass catchers. So I think they're going to chew up a lot of yards between the 20s in the passing game. And even with that run game in Detroit, Jared Goff averaged more than 4,500 pass yards the last 3 years. I don't know if Caleb Williams is as good as Jared Goff. We're going to find that out, but I think he's within 1,000 yards of him, And so I'd sprinkle a little on Williams getting to 4,000 passing yards at plus 200 over as well at BetMGM. I just think that in this Ben Johnson offense, he's going to throw for a ton of yards, and this is a very low number to me.